Hello everyone and welcome to this informative YouTube lecture where we will uncover the secrets of the thyroid gland, its hormones and the diseases that can affect it. The thyroid gland is a small but mighty organ which plays a significant role in our overall health. So by the end of this lecture, you will have a comprehensive understanding of the thyroid gland, its hormones, and the potential challenges it can pose to our well-being. So we'll start with the thyroid gland, which is a vital endocrine organ, and look at its location and structure. So we'll start with the location and as well as the structure of thyroid gland. So if you look at the structure of the thyroid gland, it's a butterfly-shaped gland which is located in the neck and is just below the Adam's apple. It originates from endoderm. So it's endodermal in origin and it's just below the Adam's apple, as you can see on the right hand side. It consists of two lobes which are connected by a thin bridge which we call as the isthmus, okay, shown in the black color here. Histologically, the thyroid gland consists of spherical sacs, which we call as the thyroid follicles, which I have shown here. So these are actually the thyroid follicles. And these are approximately 3 million in number in thyroid gland. And these thyroid follicles are lined with the cuboidal epithelium, All right, and this cuboidal epithelium and this cuboidal epithelium, which contains these thyroid follicles in them, contain a fluid which we call as colloid. And this colloid actually contains thyroglobulin, which leads to the formation of the hormones from the thyroid gland. So if you look at the weight of the thyroid gland, it weighs about 25 grams in an average adult, and it has a blood flow of about 5 mils per gram per minute. All right, so this is about the location and the structure of the thyroid gland. Now let's move to the thyroid hormones. So the second section is thyroid hormones, all the hormones that are produced from the thyroid gland. So there are two main hormones which are called as T3 and T4. These are the two main hormones that are secreted or produced by thyroid gland. So looking at these two hormones, we'll go one by one. First, we'll see T3, what it does and what it is called. So T3 is actually a triiodothyronine. So we call it as triiodothyronine because it contains 3 iodine molecules. And this is an active thyroid hormone. You should remember that this is an active thyroid hormone. And it's derived from T4. So basically T4 leads to the formation of T3. And this T3, which we call as triiodothyronine, plays a crucial role in regulating the metabolism, body temperature, and energy production. It also impacts the heart rate and digestion, and as well as the muscle function, including the body temperature and other metabolic functions. So now if we look at the T4, which is another hormone that's produced by thyroid gland, it's also called as thyroxine in simple terms, but it is also called as tetraiodothyronine because it contains 4 iodine molecules. So this is a prohormone and leads to the formation of T3 as I have shown here. And this conversion from T4 to T3 basically occurs in the target tissue. So when T4 is converted, this is a prohormone which is converted into T3, which is a real hormone, and this conversion process takes place at the target tissues only, and not in the thyroid gland itself. And this is the most abundant thyroid hormone as well. That's the T4, which is more abundant. It's the most abundant one. All right, and it has lots of metabolic effects. It exerts its metabolic effects in the target tissues. So these thyroid hormones, how are they synthesized? So one of the important things that you have to remember here is the iodine uptake. So what basically happens is the thyroid hormones, as I already mentioned, contains iodine atoms, and those iodine atoms are obtained from the diet. So the iodine atoms, these are obtained from diet, and this iodine is then actively transported to the thyroid follicular cells from the bloodstream, wherein both the T3 and T4 are kind of iodinated. Okay, so basically you have to remember there's one amino acid that we call as tyrosine, and whenever this tyrosine is iodinated, it leads to the formation of T3 and T4. So in conclusion, we can say that both T3 and T4, which are the hormones of the thyroid gland, are the iodinated forms of the amino acid tyrosine. So the thyroid hormones are formed by iodinating the tyrosine residues. And where does this happen? This happens on the thyroglobulin, which is a protein which is found in the thyroid follicles, as I already mentioned previously. So the iodinated thyroglobulin is actually reabsorbed into the follicular cells, and then it cleaves it kind of cleaves by some enzymatic reactions, and then releases T3 and T4. All right, so we'll mention it here, the thyroglobulin, which is iodinated, then it's reabsorbed into the follicular cells, reabsorption of this iodinated thyroglobulin occurs, and then there occurs the conversion of, or the cleavage of, this iodinated thyroglobulin to T3 and T4. All right, so one of the important things about this thyroid gland is to see how is it regulated basically, or how does the regulation of thyroid hormones occur. So we'll write here regulation. So we'll see how the T3 and T4 are regulated here. So there are two important things that you have to remember here. One is called as the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. So hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. All right, so what it does is the hypothalamus actually controls the release of the thyrotropin releasing hormone. So the hypothalamus controls the release of thyrotropin releasing hormone, and then this thyrotropin releasing hormone actually stimulates the anterior pituitary gland and leads to the release of thyroid stimulating hormone. All right, so this is called as the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, and then this thyroid stimulating hormone has an effect on the thyroid gland and leads to the secretion of the T3 and T4. All right, so this is the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. Then there's one more feedback that we call as the negative feedback loop. All right, so what happens here is that whenever the levels of this T3 and T4 are elevated in the bloodstream, so then what happens is a kind of negative feedback happens, wherein the elevated levels of T3 and T4 inhibit the release of thyrotropin releasing hormone, as well as the thyroid stimulating hormones. So both TSH and TRH are negatively impacted by the high levels of the T3 and T4 in the bloodstream, and that way it is a kind of negative feedback, and it maintains the hormone balance. So if we show it in a kind of graphic representation, we can say that this is hypothalamus. All right, and then the hypothalamus basically releases thyrotropin releasing hormone, and it has an effect on the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland itself releases thyroid stimulating hormone from the thyroid gland. Pituitary releases the thyroid stimulating hormone, and then it has an effect on the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland in turn releases the T3 and T4. So whenever the levels of T3 and T4 go very high in the bloodstream, there's a kind of negative feedback loop, wherein the high levels of T3 and T4 cause a reduction in the release of the thyrotropin releasing hormone, as well as the thyroid stimulating hormone. All right, so now let's move to the some of the common thyroid diseases. So we'll write here thyroid diseases. So I'll mention a couple of diseases here. So one of the problems that occurs with thyroid gland is the hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism. So what happens in hypothyroidism is that it's characterized by the insufficient thyroid hormone production. So that means the thyroid hormone is very less in the body, and the symptoms kind of include fatigue, weight gain, and cold intolerance. So hypothyroidism can, cause cretinism in infants. That means kind of growth reduction, and in adults it can lead to girls disease. But this happens in adults, and it can also lead to goiter. This mostly happens in the people which live in the hilly areas because they don't get much iodine. And then there's one more problem that can occur with the thyroid, that's called as the hyperthyroidism. So the hyperthyroidism means when there's an excessive thyroid hormone production. So that means the thyroid hormone production is very high, and because of that, the symptoms can include like weight loss, rapid heart rate, and heat intolerance. So the hypothyroidism is basically associated with cold intolerance, but the hyperthyroidism is associated with the heat intolerance. And then because of these, then there are a couple of autoimmune diseases as well, and those include like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and this is an autoimmune disease which leads to kind of chronic inflammation of thyroid gland, and it's because of the hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism can lead to this disease. And then there's one more autoimmune disorder which is called as the Graves' disease. So in Graves' disease, what happens is it's a kind of disorder which leads to hyperthyroidism. All right, and what it does is it's manifested with symptoms such as bulging eyes, and then also goiter as well. So that's all about the thyroid gland. So in conclusion, I can say that the thyroid gland is a vital endocrine organ that produces hormones which are essential for regulating our metabolism, energy levels, and overall health. So thank you for joining us in this informative lecture. If you find this video helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with others. And if you have any questions or topics you would like us to cover in future videos, please leave them in the comment section below. Stay informed and take charge of your thyroid health. Thank you so much.